Throughout history, women have played important political, social, and religious roles in society, tracing evidence back to the earliest recordings of human history from the Paleolithic era. Though women are typically thought to historically hold positions in society inferior to men, the art of different cultures reflects the different roles of power they embodied and how these roles vary across time and place. It is essential to recognize that at the advent of human existence in the Stone Age, a hierarchy between men and women did not necessarily exist, and there is evidence to support that they were perceived as equal. The Venus of Willendorf is one such example of revered womanhood. The exaggeration of her female anatomy and the lack of otherwise distinguishing features suggest that this figurine and others like it served as idols of fertility, likely worshipped. Though not representative of real women, the Venus figures of the Stone Age, as well as painted imagery found at sites such as Catalhaic, do lend themselves to the idea that while gendered division of labor was likely in place at this time, women's roles as childbearers were just as valued and revered as the roles of men. They also suggest that women played an important role in religion, and that they were just as connected to the spiritual realm and capable of serving as shamans in religious rituals, such as cave painting, as men were. The metal statue of Queen Napir-Asu from the 14th century BCE depicts the wife of King Untash-Napir-Shira, and was intended to be a permanent installment in the temple to demonstrate her unwavering devotion to the gods. There is an Elamite inscription on her skirt that vows divine vengeance against those who would harm the queen or her empire, and demonstrates not only a close relationship with religion, but the protection of her state, and her conviction came to represent not only her own self, but her entire civilization as it has survived over time. Her hands clasped over her middle may further allude to her womanhood and fertility and willingness to carry on the dynastic succession, both biologically and in less literal but no less significant ways, such as through the remains of her statue. That a woman was so dedicated and acknowledged to be so and then trusted with the legacy of the empire is significant in history. In ancient Egypt, women were not intended to have power, but some still challenged that status quo. One of the most influential women of power was Hatshepsut, a female pharaoh who reigned in Egypt in the 15th century BCE. Many of her portraitures represent her as a man, adorning her image in traditionally masculine decorations such as headdresses and beards, in order to downplay the controversy that came with a female pharaoh. The scriptures from her reign still document her as a woman. Egyptian woman of power was Nefertiti, queen to Akhenaten during the Amarna period. Art at this time strayed from Egypt's typical idealization toward a more naturalistic approach to works, and portraits are thought to closely resemble what their subjects really looked like. The detail and beauty in capturing Nefertiti's true visage, as well as the fact that in many works she is depicted wearing the headdress of the pharaoh, like Hatshepsut, show the respect she inspired and the great power she held. Artwork of Hatshepsut, Nefertiti, and women like them are among the first in history to truly celebrate women's achievements, not only as politically equal to men but at the highest possible level of status in society. The snake goddess is what many scholars believe to be a prehistoric Aegean example of women worshipped as fertility goddesses. She wears a common Minoan dress that covers up to her shoulders, but her breasts are purposely left out, emphasizing her feminine anatomy. The contrast between the snake goddess and other Minoan depictions of women, which were generally much humbler, furthers the idea that although women were shortchanged in society, they were often conceptualized and highly worshipped on a spiritual level. Although the Roman Empire was known for granting political power to many citizens of the state, women were still limited politically and socially. The Flavian woman exemplifies how Roman women were often bound by societal expectations of beauty and conduct, emphasizing frivolity and femininity, likening them more to the whimsy of a goddess of beauty than to real people with influence. Some, however, challenged these constructs, one such woman being Livia. Livia was the wife of the Emperor Augustus, and though she held little formal status other than that, she proved to be a profound influence and counselor in her husband's political affairs. Her statue and other portraits of her show her wearing simpler, more modest yet no less feminine clothing, and a severe hairstyle to challenge and counteract the standards of beauty that fed the immoral reputation of women at the time, and to represent her as both a woman and someone to be taken seriously. One of the most widespread and influential examples of a woman essential to religion is that of the Virgin Mary. Mary has been one of the most revered symbols in Christianity for millennia, and in some cultures is even the center of worship over other figures. The Byzantine Empire is one of the most prolific cultures when it comes to artistic depictions of the Mother of Christ. Just one such work is the Virgin Theotokos and Child between Saints Theodore and George, which portrays Mary seated upon a golden throne holding her son. Theotokos signifies that she is the bearer of God as well as wisdom, and in this case is both enthroned and a throne herself, as Jesus is seated upon her lap. Again, although Byzantine women were very limited in their social and political power, the near obsession with images of Mary and other female martyrs showed that they were still recognized as spiritually equal to men, and while they held little to no power on earth, they held some of the highest power in heaven, even over men, as exemplified by the saints surrounding and submitting to Mary and her child. In conclusion, although they were often limited by society, women still found ways to exercise influence over their respective cultures, be it through political power or spiritual worship, and although many tried to strip them of their significance and validity as important cultural figures, it is often their images that are of the most profound works of art left, and that continue to confound and inspire us today.